Hello everybody, I'm Alfred and listening to Content Creators Club. Let's open our Bibles to the book of Mark chapter 16 verse 50. I read, "And he said unto them, Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature." Let me take that again. "And he said unto them, Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature." Now this is a commandment. This is an instruction. A commandment. A lot of times we refer to the 10 commandments, but we ignore this. This commission to win souls is a commandment, a very powerful commandment, and it is written, "He that winneth souls is wise." That shows you how important soul winning is. It's telling you that it is a foolish thing to do not to win souls. It's a foolish thing to do not to preach the gospel. We are commanded to preach the gospel. This is not for pastors alone or evangelists alone or any one of the fivefold ministry gifts or fivefold ministry offices. This is for all Christians. I would like to talk about preaching the gospel in the modern world. In today's world, we have to upgrade many things about the ways we preach the gospel. Because keep in mind that it is about communication. We are sending a message to the world. So we cannot stick to one medium or one way of sending that message forth, or a way that is outdated. Back in the day, for example, people could knock on people's doors and share the gospel. But ever since, we've lived in a different kind of world where everybody's house is fenced, everybody's gated. Nobody wants an intruder or somebody they don't know to come and knock and preach to them. They will say no. Many people, you can't even pass through the gates. So the change of strategy is now needed. Back in the day, people left their doors open. People knew each other. So neighbors could walk in to their homes and all of that. It was more communal, but we live in a different world now. A lot of strategies that worked then do not work today. You could hold an open air tent meeting and invite people and people will show up. But now, there are all kinds of laws to prevent that from happening. You have to have this permit and that permit. Some laws will say, you can't have an open air meeting that is more than 10 people, that is more than 20 people. All kinds of crazy laws. And interestingly, most of those things are intentionally done to prevent the spread of the gospel, but people don't know that. So, in any case, we need to update our strategies in addition to putting ourselves in positions of authority. So, certain legislation will not be made to prevent the preaching of the gospel. When people make a legislature that bans open air meetings past a certain number of people, they have banned crusades from happening. And think about all the moves of God that took place in crusades. When you go back to the Billy Graham crusades, go even back, John G. Lake, and the early ministers, even in more recent times, the ministry of Evangelist Rambonke. And when we look at the era of the tent meetings with Oral Roberts and all of that, but now, in the name of quote-unquote safety, they ban that. But yet, the world is allowed to have open air Coachella and all kinds of festivals for their secular musicians. Burning Man still holds. People gather in the middle of the desert to have Burning Man. It still holds. The world is allowed to have their orgies and their nonsense. But for people to gather to share the gospel, they put all kinds of laws to prevent that. And people are not wise and smart enough to see that the real goal, they are targeting the church. A lot of legislature is done to target the church. So in any case, we need to upgrade how churches preach the gospel and reach out to people, and even how churches are structured. One of the things I want to focus on in this particular program is creating content creators collectives. We live in a day and age where a lot of young people are growing up on the internet. They are growing up on TikTok. They are being influenced by the TikTok, the Facebook, the Instagram. The social media posts is what they are growing up on. whoever is pushing out messages, the kind of messages that are being pushed out on social media, is what will determine the mindset of the generation of the future. The mindset of the nation of the future is going to be determined by the kind of content that is pushed out today. That is why China bans wokeness, LGBT, from their social media apps. They don't want young people seeing LGBT. They don't want young people seeing nonsense. Rather, in China, they promote creativity on their own social media. They promote people being innovative. They promote people being respectful to their parents. In China, the apps work completely differently. But the same China will push to other countries all the nonsense that they will not allow in China itself. Because they know that for China to be great, there are certain things that they cannot allow. They understand that for the future of China to be great, the children today should be fed the right things on social media. They understand that power. But the rest of the world doesn't seem to quite get it yet. In any case, we Christians, we should get it. And we should use the internet to preach the gospel. There are content creator collectives and groups where people come together, even content creator houses, where people come together and they are just content creators. They live together in a house and they create content, or they belong to a collective, a group, where they have like a uniform monetization. It's kind of like a record label kind of thing. So you join the collective and the monetization is uniform. So you don't have to wait for your channel to be monetized. You join the club and, you determine through a contract what your cost is and what percentage of ownership you have over the content you create, whether you have complete ownership or not, and all those kinds of things are being sorted out, and that way things are being promoted faster and a message is being pushed faster. Churches should have that for their young people. The children's church, the teens church, especially the teens church, should have programs, get the parents' consent. So they should put out stuff with the drama department, the music department. They should create content. They should start creating skits and putting out the message and advertising the church also. Telling people, come to our church at the end of each skit. It is very important, extremely important, because keep in mind, for example, you as a Christian, have you ever sat down to listen to a whole teaching by a Muslim imam? No, probably not. Have you ever sat down to listen to a whole teaching by a Buddhist leader or teacher? Probably not. Why? Because you're a Christian. In the same way, there are a lot of people, because they are a Muslim or they are a Buddhist or because they are an atheist, they will never listen to a sermon. So all the preaching and the teaching and the sermons that you are spending money, the church tithe and offering, you are putting your program on TV. It is only people that are leaning towards Christianity that will even listen. There are a lot of people that will not watch it because they already are what they are and they have what they are doing. But this is a way to get to them. Look at the LGBT and a lot of worldly ideologies. We get in contact with their messages, not looking out for their messages. We are not looking for their content. Nobody wakes up one morning normally to look for gay or LGBT content. But you just want to watch the latest Hollywood blockbuster. And inside it, they will interweave their LGBT message inside. That is genius. That is smart. And their message keeps moving. So a parent will send their child in America to school to learn and, be ready for a better future, to get a job and all of that. But inside the educational program, they have intertwined LGBT ideology and it is okay to be gay inside the educational program. But that is not what that person came for. We too must be smart and then create all these packages for others and then intertwine the gospel inside. When they come, they hear the gospel and we win them to Christ. That is what we should start doing. Look at the Olympics where they were mocking Christ. That was intentional. That is a message. That is a statement. And that is a statement of normalization and trying to change the world into a world that is okay and it is official. We are now against Christianity. We are antichrist is pop. Is what is hip. Being against Christ and against Christianity is what is cool. That was a message. That was intentional. That is why the Olympics did what they did. You see? So we must be smart. We should think, why don't we have our own sports organization? Have our own sports events? Then when people come, we begin by opening it with prayer. We play sports and all of that. Then in between, somebody comes out, gives a testimony, altar call. In fact, invite someone to pray and then healings, miracles, sports, intertwine the gospel inside our own sports organizations. Have our own Olympics, and it will beat the Olympics. It certainly will. Have all these things, our own movie companies. People come, they just want to be entertained. A lot of people, whether they are Buddhists, whether they are atheists, whatever, they want to watch movies, they want to watch cartoons. And that's how most of the secular ideologies spread, because they intertwine themselves into things that have nothing to do with what people came for. And their message goes forth. And most people are just open to receiving anything. So they are open to it and they just receive. We can use that power for righteousness. We can use that strategy for righteousness and input the gospel into different things. So every church should have that situation where it gets the young people active in preaching the gospel. There are people that a young person can reach that a preacher will never reach. In spite of the fact the preacher is anointed, the preacher is wiser. A lot of young people will rather listen to another young person telling them Jesus is Lord. I just give my life to Christ and best thing ever. Simple. Has more impact than a lengthy 3-hour sermon from an older person that has all kinds of wisdom inside. That is how some young people are. So there are a lot of people that the people in the teenage church or the children's church can reach themselves that you can never reach. So let us be wise and take advantage of that and do it fairly in a way that the young people will get paid and they will get the money, from their content creation and all of that, because keep in mind, they can be doing it on their own, but we have to be wise and do things in a way that creativity is rewarded in the church and it's also used for the gospel, because a lot of these secular musicians came from the church. It is a shame that the church lost them. One of the things that Jesus said is that of all those you have sent to me, I have lost none, except the son of perdition, that the prophecy will be fulfilled. And that he was talking about Judas Iscariot. He lost none. So it is a win for us not to lose anyone. So it is not a win that this popular musician in the world started in the church. Now they are making music for the world. Why weren't they nurtured in the church? Why weren't they rewarded financially for their talent, compensated? Why weren't they built? Why wasn't it encouraged in the church? Rather, some churches will rather turn away from gospel musicians and say that there's no such thing as gospel ministry. We need to be wise. All the talents, all the abilities, even somebody that is a banker. Why can't you be a banker for Christ? A banker with a difference. So there cannot be a collective of Christians that own banks, that own mega corporations. No wonder the world is evil, because keep in mind that there will always be collectives. So if it's not good people and the church does not have plans to utilize and build up people within them to run these positions and be captains of industry, these people will end up contributing and giving their talents to a worldly organization. There are some people in the church that God bless them. Without God, they will not have the education that they have and the knowledge that they have. But they will end up working for a secular or a multi-million-dollar, corporation that puts his money in something that works against the gospel, that he could have been using to work for the gospel. For example, a lot of these secular musicians' concerts are sponsored by worldly companies. They are sponsored by telecommunications companies, by banks, and all of that. Look at football teams that are sponsored by this mega corporation and that corporation. What if the church utilized the footballers, the people who had the talent to play football? We had our own football teams. We had our own, football or sports organizations. And we encourage this, we build this, they are paid well, and when it's marketed well and people have awareness of it, they'll make money. All the money that the NBA players, for example, are making, understand cash flow. It's flowing from the people to the NBA. It can easily flow to you if you create something better than the NBA or get people's attention more than the NBA. So it is not a law that the NBA must be the NBA and you cannot create something bigger than the NBA. You can create something bigger than FIFA. You can create something bigger than the Olympics. This is fact. And we are the church. We need to start thinking in this way. And this is why I say, if you're a church, you must think, of having and pray about it. Have a for-profit organization. Let's say the name of your church is Spring Church, for example. Let's say the name of your church is Spring Church. Let there be, open a Spring Investments or Spring Corporation or Spring Corp, and under it have your for-profit ventures, and let it be known, and let the profit from there also fund the church. Let it be what is funding the church. You cannot rely on tithes and offering, because that has a lot of limitations, and it makes you structure the church in a way that the church is structured to bring in tithes and offerings. Instead of preaching the gospel, your focus is now on structuring church activities and church movements towards bringing in tithes and offering, because it needs to run. Everything needs an engine. And for a church to function, money needs to flow to make the engine run. So, if it is running on charity and on donations, to keep that engine running, you have to do things that appeal to bringing in more donations. And it puts you at a disadvantage. It is not a win. I know some people, it has been so normalized, but it is not a win for a church to be praying and praying for it to continue to be open. In other words, you are always praying that God will provide, that you will have resources, that people will give. That is not what you should be praying for. Your prayer should be for souls. But when you are dependent on the charity model, you will always be running out of money and depending on money. And the devil creates systems that bring in money, and then with the money that he's bringing, he's causing more destruction. Look at Big Pharma, for example, what they did during the pandemic. They created a problem, gain of function research, that gave birth to the creation of COVID, which was created in a lab, using government funds. Then the same government gave them funds to create the vaccine, and then bought it from them and gave them immunity. So they created money when they created a problem, and then they generated money also from presenting the so-called solution, which was not a solution. And then all the investments and because that was the greatest wealth transfer. Some businesses were shut down, some were not. And all of this was pre-planned. So they just made money. Look at what happened with the share price of Pfizer and all the people that were giving vax. All the companies that were making government approvals and the ones that had patents. So they made money all through. And with the money that they are making, they are investing more into their own New World Order agenda. But we as Christians, we are losing money. Anytime you see a preacher on television, he's losing money. That is money going. Anytime you see anybody else, money is being made. And both have agendas. When you see a Will Smith or whatever actor on television, they have their own agenda. They are in a network that has its own agenda, that has its own message, but it is generating millions, and it's pouring back those millions into pushing that agenda even more. But the Christian, money is being taken away. We are not making money from being on television. There's no reason why TBN or the 700 Club or all these other networks, the Christian networks, shouldn't change their structure and start showing ads in their programming and getting paid for it. And, move away from asking people for money. You don't need to ask people for money because you are generating money yourself. And then actually you are now giving to the poor rather than asking so and then preaching all kinds of sermons of so and so and so, which in as much as sowing is good for the right reason, we must be wise and move to better things, and also understand that the devil has already put you in a box where anytime somebody who especially not a Christian hears a preacher say so, he shuts down. His mind is blocked. He's like, these people are here for my money. He has blocked out, his mind has been blocked from the message that you have. So we must be wise and we must understand these things. So it's important for a church to have a for-profit organization that will end up funding the whole church. So you don't need people to give tithes and offerings. But even if they give, then you can be you are totally transparent that it's all going 100% to the welfare department. And when people come with verifiable needs within the church, it is distributed around. And that is the original structure of what tithes and offerings were used. The givings. When you look at Ananias and Sapphira, it was given back to the church members who were in need. So when you bring forth, it is given to the church members who is in need, the orphans, the widows, and all of that. That is how it was. So that structure is important. So the church building and all of that comes from the for-profit organization. There are a lot of people who are talented. There are talented businessmen in church, talented managers, people who work for bank. Let them use their services in the for-profit organization of the church that we have a bigger goal for preaching the gospel and pushing the gospel message out there, and let them be paid and compensated what they will be paid in the world or what they will be paid or even more. So that is how it should be. So bringing it back to this broadcast, the contents, you have a church where there are hundreds of people or the thousands. Let those people be useful. Have a day that they come, like, just like choirs have days they come for choir rehearsal, and then before they sing, have days and other programs where the kids can come into the church, do rehearsals and then create skits, with the drama department or whatever, and then, have content, create, even if it is, for vlogging, kind of like the Brett Cooper comment sections, you can have sections of your church sets, so people, and you are making people active and you are giving them something to do. So they are being involved. Back in the day, to keep people away from gangs, they created basketball clubs in the hood, for kids to come and play basketball, and they participate in tournaments, and all of that helped to keep kids organized, and it keeps a lot of kids away from gangs and other activities that are out there in the street and in the world. So let them be bringing that content creation culture, and this way you also teach them. You are also teaching them how to create with Christianity in mind and to push the gospel out there. So even if something happens and they were to leave the church, we have an entire generation of people in the future who are creating content that know how to push the gospel in it and see the importance of it. Plus, they are already building an audience in that direction. So that's where it is in their best interest for them to remain. So every church needs to create unlimited sets of content creator collectives among all the young people that join. It should have, the church should have like a foundation school or a new introduction program for new people who join the church, that get people acquainted with the teachings of the church, teachings of the Bible, specifically of the denomination and what they believes. It should not have to be prolonged. It should be kind of like a school, kind of a classes thing, like a Bible study school kind of thing. Perhaps you could cover everything in just 5 classes which could take 5 days, 30 minutes a day kind of thing. And then when they go through that, you get them involved, of course with their consent, in the content creators collective. Even if there are 1 million kids, then you can create 500,000 or close to 1 million different collectives within the church, or structure it whichever way is best. But it has to be done in a way that everybody can be involved, so all the kids can be involved, and let them preach the gospel early. Let them start reaching out early to others via social media, via the internet. And of course, their parents' consent should be gotten as well. So that is that. Remember to check out alfred.vip for more. God bless you.